Hello, good morning and good afternoon. I know we're aware that we've got our US customers, UK customers in EU. Welcome to our first webinar of the year. So good to have you here. We already have 174 people attending right now and counting. So we're just going to give some time, probably about 3 minutes, just for the remaining attendees to join. So yeah, just get settled. We'll be starting soon. So while we wait, I'm just going to go over some housekeeping right now. So the first thing is obvious, is just to keep your mics on mute during the session. This will just make sure everything runs smoothly, and just also note that the session will be recorded. So when our mics are clear, it just helps for reference for anyone who's looking at the recording later on. Also, we'll have 10 to 15 minutes for questions. So if you have any questions during this session that pops up, please use our Q&A module, which will be available from now. And then at the end of the session, we'll be able to have a time just to answer your questions, so the panel will be able to address them. And like I said before, the presentation will be recorded, and this will be distributed after the session ends. Yeah, with a new year comes new changes from Microsoft. As we all know, there have been some price increases, and we're just going to discuss what that means, how that impacts your organization. And the second one was just Microsoft's licensing strategy and its impact to organizations as well, and how TTT will be helping customers throughout with these Microsoft changes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our amazing panel. We first of all have Justin Sherrocks, who is the UK Director of Sales, and then we have Noor Khalil, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships, and we have Chad Seymour, who is the Senior Technical Account Manager at TTT. So over to you guys.
Hello and welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that a lot of people joining from across the world, so welcome from the US, Canada, EU, UK. We're excited to be here.
Thank you for the introduction, Denise. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody globally here. We're excited to really get down to brass tacks, go over all the changes with you guys from Microsoft, how we as an organization here at Trusted Tech Team are going to help you understand these changes and how to mitigate a lot of these increases, what we can do as an organization to help optimize everybody's tenant and just make sure that everybody is nice, clean, mean for these renewals coming up, and a good understanding of how you're going to be able to present these budgets. So, let's get down to business. There's a lot of changes from Microsoft in the last couple of years, and Copilot is a really good example of how we are expecting things to change from Microsoft's end. So a lot of hype behind Copilot. We understand that everybody loves AI. They want to use it, but understanding the limitations and potential vulnerabilities when Copilot rolls out. They rolled it out about mid last year, and anybody that wanted early access to Copilot had to commit to 1-year licensing models, and unfortunately had to pay these licenses up front. What Microsoft did starting December 1st, and this is very important because it kind of goes into a lot of their other licensing and procurement models when it comes to terms, billing terms, and the length of the procurement licensing within the Microsoft Partner Center. So ultimately, Copilot was released as a 1-year annual commit with an annual upfront payment. Starting December 1st, this is now available to all customers commercially at a monthly billing term, so you don't have to pay it all up front, but Microsoft increased the pricing if you want that monthly billing and you wanted to CapEx it to ultimately give you a better price if you're going to pay it all up front, or if you're paying monthly, you're going to be billed a little bit of a higher cost, but that means you can utilize those funds throughout the year without having to spend all your money on an expenditure. So this is very important because you're going to understand how the transition with the rest of the licenses actually apply. So yeah, we could look at it as a price increase ultimately, but what it realistically is a change of billing terms and billing frequency for our customers and clients, whether you want to have full flexibility on a monthly plan where you can increase and decrease licenses every day if you wanted to, and all that information, all those licenses will be prorated. So it's important to understand what's coming down the pipe. And that is starting April 1st. This is the bomb here, guys. Starting April 1st, all licenses are now being introduced with a potential annual plan. So what that means is Microsoft is going to incentivize CSPs, customers, anybody that's procuring these licenses to pay these things up front to avoid any kind of change to your pricing. Now, how realistic is that? Fairly unrealistic. I don't see many of our customers, many of our clients ultimately paying for all their licenses up front. Now, different SaaS platforms, whether it's your email security, it's your backup, security and awareness training, it's something that us in the tech industry are fairly used to paying these platforms upfront for the year. And Microsoft historically has always been, hey, you know what? Let me get it when I need it and remove it when I don't. At this point, Microsoft wants to attribute all the revenue for the year. They want to be able to project that, and understanding that is the biggest difference when we're rolling these things out or when we're having a renewal discussion, understanding when your line items are renewing, making sure that it is more important than ever now that we don't renew your guys' licenses with a overage in any way, shape, or form. We want you guys to be clean. We want to be mindful of the budgets that you all are submitting to your C-suite. We want to understand that what makes most sense for your organization. If you can CapEx it, I encourage you to do so because that will mitigate the price increase completely for you. And you continue to have the extraordinary discounts that you see from us here at Trusted Tech Team. So this is what we're going to really dive into today. Really excited to answer all these questions and really be on the front line with every single one of our customers. Our account management team is here to assist every step of the way. And we've had some phenomenal individuals here on this call that are going to be able to jump in and help every step of the way. So understanding when your renewals are is going to be very important, and understanding how much we can clean up your tenants is going to help bring that cost down significantly across the board. Even though we might see a little bit of a price bump, we want to ensure that we're staying under budget so that you don't see this price increase overall. I'll pass it back over to Justin to go over some of the strategic changes that Microsoft is applying to some SKUs and line items that will affect many of you, but understanding where they're pushing it and how we as an organization can bundle these and really show you a much more cost-effective way of applying these licenses within your organization.
Yeah, thank you, Noel. And I think one thing to kind of start is that I think collectively the changes that have happened over the past couple of months and the changes that are yet to happen in the next few months are probably the most amount of collective changes that we've ever seen come out of Microsoft at the same time. And I think it's definitely, if you take a step back and really understand what Microsoft's position is at the moment, what they've been looking to achieve over the past 2-3 years, it really is starting to align, to more of their strategic path on, firstly, revenue growth, but also alignment to their model in terms of focusing on the AI and security. A lot of these changes are being, forced and driven through partners like ourselves. They really are incentivizing partners to assess and really look after the market and the channel in a better light, and that kind of comes through, updates like this. So let's start on the Power BI and the Teams phone. To note, I guess something from Microsoft is this is the first pricing increase on these specific line items since inception. I guess the messaging from them is, since Power BI got released, since Teams Phone Standard got released, there's been significant amount of increases in feature sets, but also improvements in terms of usability. And I know that a lot of organizations, and I'm sure a lot of our customers today, and also potential future prospects, Power BI has definitely kind of taken the market, and we've seen a significant increase in usage over the past year. The key thing I think that it is aligning from a Microsoft point of view is their strategy to get more customers utilizing Fabric which is definitely, is the new data warehouse functionality for Power BI, as well as the Power BI premium capacities, which have been deprecated this year and will no longer be allowed to be renewed post-February. A lot of that consumption and usability is being pushed into that fabric. And then also, if you have a look at the increase of pricing from Power BI, which is about 40%, and Teams Phone Standard, which is about 20%, it really is aligning those bundles to move into that more kind of complete set of the Microsoft E5. And again, I think the way that we talk about it is Microsoft likes to give and take at the same time. So we've seen the increases on the side, but then you've also seen incentives come along, in terms of the Microsoft E5 do more with less. So they're trying to incentivize a more complete, they're trying to increase appetite in terms of those uplift sales. So I think there's a lot of changes. We're obviously here to help and really make sure that you are aware of the impact, understanding how this is going to, impact your overall technology budget. I know that it is one of the most difficult things to keep optimized and continue to keep optimized. And that's why we'd like to take a bit more of a proactive approach, getting these updates out early, making sure that we are working with our customers as well as potential future prospects to identify opportunities on how to stay lean, but then also assess your different options in terms of these usabilities. Does it make sense to step up to the Microsoft E5? Are you not using enough of those feature sets for it to make commercial sense? And I think one of the key things is really identifying. I think we need to be a lot better at identifying when you are overutilizing it, when you're not overutilizing your licenses. So if you've got consumption-based models, understanding are all my users, all 60 Power BI Pro licenses being consumed, or only 30 people being used, and have we just continued to grow that count up?
Yeah, that's really important too, Justin, that you mentioned that, because a lot of the times we want to be able to take advantage of the promotions that Microsoft puts out there. I know many of you on the call today have potentially spoken with myself personally or Chad personally over here on the US side, and understanding that we want to be able to bundle these things to where it makes financial sense to you. So if many of you had a Microsoft E3 on a do more with less promotion, and you had a few users on a Power BI Pro, you had some Teams standard licenses, what makes the most financial sense? So actually getting with your account manager is going to be extremely important this year and every year moving forward, to look at that financial model and say, hey, does it make sense for me to keep everything a la carte and separated? Because the last couple of years, it absolutely did. But with some of these pricing increases to specific line items like Power BI Pro, like Teams, in these cases, even if we don't use all those feature sets within an E5 license, it actually does make sense to start looking at financial sense, to start bundling these things together to ultimately get you, our customer, a better price overall.
Absolutely. And I definitely think that's aligning more with the strategy, right? I think they're looking at customers who are investing in their Microsoft stack, who are consuming more of the features. They incentivize partners to help with onboarding and utilization, right? The more Microsoft products you utilize within your tenant, it gives us brownie points, basically. And I think that kind of leads nicely into the next topic. This topic's been around for a while, particularly for my, our European customer base. The announcement got officially made within the European Economic Region in October of 2023, due to the antitrust lawsuit raised against Microsoft with the Teams utilization. And that was a key kind of driver into the unbundling that we've seen over the past year. Now, I know a lot of customers haven't necessarily run into the major issues, but the key thing is, any net new customers looking to consume enterprise licenses. So whether you're maybe on Business Premium now and you're looking to grow into the Microsoft E3, E5, E1 license, organizations are now being forced to purchase the SKUs separately. So you can purchase your Microsoft E3 with no Teams, and then purchase a Teams Enterprise or Teams Essentials, depending on how many user accounts you have. The key thing that has driven is, firstly, it's been a benefit for organizations who don't currently use Teams in their organizations, right? So organizations who are using Slack and Zoom and maybe other collaboration tools, you're seeing a potential reduction or cost offset to then just purchase your Microsoft licenses without the Teams SKU. The key thing that I'd maybe put a bit of warning on that is we've spoken to a lot of organizations, and they've kind of come out and they said, we're not using Teams at all. Then we've done an analysis, had conversations with the actual users, and then really identify saying, okay, well, we actually do have Teams meetings with our customers. We might not use it internally, but there's definitely a Teams meeting every now and then, or maybe there's a Teams chat that nobody really knows about. So I think really identifying, do we use Teams? Is there potential engagement with our customers? Because Microsoft have some specific guidelines in terms of when you can use the enterprise licenses without Teams, and when you do need that additional kind of Teams add-on.
That's a really good point, Justin. And for a lot of our customers that are using Teams, keep in mind, it's not going away for you. You have a grandfathered bundled package, which is within your SKU that you have within your tenant, that is going to keep those Teams licenses intact. Now, it's kind of like a discontinued item at this point, but as long as you have those SKUs within your tenant, it will never go away. You'll never be forced to unbundle in any way, shape, or form. As long as you renew these SKUs, you'll be in good shape. So I know a lot of our customers use Teams. They need Teams. They don't want to have to pay for something separate outside of Teams. But it is a really good point to understand that if you don't use Teams within your organization, you might be able to get a better and lower cost on your core suite licenses. If you have an Office E3, we could save you $1 or $2 without utilizing Teams. But keep in mind, when we do remove those SKUs within your tenant, it is gone forever, and you'll never be able to get that bundling back. So you would have to ultimately purchase 2 line items for each of your knowledge workers moving forward. So I encourage you, if you are utilizing Teams or if you plan on using Teams in the future, try to keep that as a bundled package, because you are going to get a greater discount across the board.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, looking at maybe the wider global impact of that separation, if you are kind of assessing moving into that enterprise SKU, or maybe you don't have them yet, and maybe you are looking assessing Trusted Tech Team as a partner, there is also the CSP to CSP transfer that Microsoft did make available. So if you do currently consume the enterprise license with Teams, there is that transfer available. But then something to consider is, in amongst these increases, this one has gone through pretty unnoticed, because a lot of organizations are only kind of picking up to it now. But I think something to consider is, the increase or the implication of removing Teams from that enterprise SKU. If you do start looking at purchasing your Microsoft E3 or your E1 or your business premium license without Teams, and then add Teams on later, you're looking at a 5 to 30% increase or decrease, depending on your Teams utilization. So I think it's really, really key, and something to note. There's definitely increases that we didn't really, forecast coming in just by that separation. So I think it's, working with the right people, aligning with the correct partners, and really understanding, what is my pricing point, ensuring that you have transparency with your licensing partner, making sure that you have a proactive partner to identify these potential impacts, but also the solutions that are available, I think is super, super important.
Yeah. And I know we're going to get to some questions down the road here towards the end of the webinar today, but I did see a question that did pop up that said, hey, if I have a grandfathered SKU within my tenant that has Teams bundling, am I okay to continue to add users to that line item? Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's extremely important that if you do want to keep your Teams, that we have those licensing and that bundle within your Microsoft tenant, and you can continuously add licenses or add users to those licenses and continue to co-term them with the rest of your tenant. So absolutely, that is something that is that I talk about with our customers every single day, and just making sure that we have that full review within your tenant and see what makes most sense for you.
Agreed. Yeah, and like I've said, I've worked both sides of the aisle, internal IT and selling Microsoft, and I know for all of you that are working, inside internal IT, when you deal with Microsoft, you typically want to set up your licensing for the year, and you want to increase and decrease when you have ingress and egress of employees, and you pretty much don't want to deal with it too much after that. So that's why it pays having a good partner in your back pocket to rely on for advice, information, and ways to take advantage of what Microsoft's doing, in the years to come. Bringing, speaking of changes Microsoft's making, their enterprise agreement is shifting in a way that they're trying to target larger organizations for enterprise agreements. And if you are not familiar with the enterprise agreement, or if you are, It's a way in which you can procure your Microsoft licenses over a 3-year term, and then every 12 months within that 3-year term, you have a true up and true down stage. Microsoft typically had that in the past for organizations of 500 users or more. As of, the most recent findings on paper, they're pushing that to 2,500 users. So organizations that are, exist with less than 2,500 users, the EA might be going away for you, and that's going to push you kind of towards newer partners like CSPs. CSPs are around like Trusted Tech Team to kind of help you with your licensing. And if you're not familiar with that, the licensing schema within CSPs exists as monthly and as annual commitments. Within those annual and monthly commitments, the annual commitment has the option that Nor mentioned earlier of both annual billing, where it's upfront, or you have monthly billing, where you can pay over the 12 months of the term. And moving forward after April of this year, you will have a 5% premium on that monthly billing / flexible billing option, as Microsoft calls it.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. And I think like that was quite a big surprise in terms of that update. I think we got insight to that coming into the end of 2024. And I think a lot of enterprise agreement customers weren't pre-warned, and a lot of organizations that are renewing this year, we're definitely seeing a larger engagement. Enterprise agreements that are renewing this year, we're seeing them come into the CSP market. Noel, maybe some insight from your side. Why do you think we're seeing these changes? Like, what's driving the change, and then maybe some insight in terms of what you're seeing on the US side?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you guys the Microsoft answer. Or I can give you, what we're seeing in the market. And ultimately, Microsoft wants to lean on the partners more to be able to support the Microsoft customers. I don't think Microsoft is worried about you guys or anybody really going to G Suite or moving off this platform, but they want to lean on us more for support and understanding. And I think that's really one of the biggest things that separates us as a CSP and a value-added reseller for Microsoft specifically, is because this is our bread and butter. We understand all the Microsoft changes. We understand the updates. We know the licensing. So when you work with other CSPs, maybe a three-letter word rhymes with EDW, or I'm not going to go too deep into some of our competitors, but ultimately you want a partner that understands your model, that understands your environment, that knows that what we could do for you with a more customized SKU. We want to be able to look at your environment. If you're if you have a volatile workforce, if you work in resorts, agriculture, manufacturing, you're going to have seasonality within your employee counts, and understanding that we can customize and mix and match different things. When you're on an EA, you cannot mix and match. You cannot move licenses down on a monthly basis. So it really comes down to understanding your environment and how a Microsoft expert like ourselves that understands what we could do to manipulate and manage your tenant from a billing and term perspective is really going to bring you guys so much more value overall, and understanding of what your budget, what your allocations are to your expenses throughout the year. We know we're in tech. We're a cost center. Most of you individuals are not bringing revenue back to your organization. So understanding where those costs are and how we can mitigate these different changes and set you up for success is going to be one of the most important things. And I think that's where Microsoft really leans into direct relationship partners like ourselves that have, the highest certifications throughout their organization, to really help provide this information to our customers, and on a day-to-day, give you that level of understanding instead of just going on a website or going through the Microsoft.com learning documentation. Boy, that takes time. But if you could pick up the phone and talk to your account manager and have a full review of your tenant and understanding of where you need to be at, I think has been vastly helpful for a lot of our customer base that's existing today.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Some really good insight there.
Yeah, so like we said, choosing the right partner for you, kind of get the lay of the land of the different options that you're going to have at your disposal. We kind of already covered EA in depth. those are for your larger organizations that are looking to lock in for 3 years. CSPs like ourselves, we dedicate ourselves primarily in understanding Microsoft, understanding cloud, and all of the different services that would help your infrastructure and operations exist and interconnect. And then you have an MSP. An MSP, distinguishes itself out from a CSP by being able to plug and play with every aspect of your company's IT, from additional manpower to network operations to security operations. It's a mile wide and an inch deep, whereas CSP, we're focused specifically on cloud products, helping you scale, helping you stay flexible, tailoring to your business and advocating for your business, being able to help you grow in identifying everything that's to come in the future and being able to help you prepare for it. That's our bread and butter.
Chad,
Yeah.
I mean, a bit of a different question for you on that one. But could a customer have an MSP, a CSP, and be in an enterprise agreement?
Theoretically, yes, you could have all of those. There's nothing about Microsoft's licensing that limits where you get your specific licenses from. It might be a hassle internally for you to do that, but at the same time, if you're doing it to, min-max every aspect of what you're going to spend on your company's infrastructure and software spend, you could do that. It would theoretically save you money if you're willing to get a little elbow grease to do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I just wanted to kind of highlight. I think we've definitely got a couple customers, who utilize an MSP maybe for their in office, help me fix my mouse, my hard disk has hit storage capacity. But also potentially being in an enterprise agreement for their licensing, but then really leveraging us for that expertise support, that proactive guidance on that Microsoft utilization. So I think, the reason I raise it is there's no right size fits all. I think every business needs something a little bit differently. But I think it really just aligns in terms of, cool, how do we get the most out of our Microsoft investment? And then really just partnering for success in terms of, what is your specific business outcome that you need to align to? And then, how can we help you, or what makes the most sense for your organization? But I think at least have that proactive conversation. And then maybe a question for you, Noor. Why would, I know that we've spoken about enterprise agreements a little bit here, but why would a customer, choose an enterprise agreement over maybe a CSP?
Microsoft enterprise agreements made a lot of sense 5-6 years ago. I think with the flexibility and the customization that we as a CSP are able to provide customers today, along with the support plans that we have available for our customers, our organization has invested a significant amount of money and investment into our in-house engineers that understand everything from SharePoint to OneDrive to the Power Platforms. We want to be able to support our customers in every aspect. And when you're on an EA or an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, not only are you locked into these 3-year agreements where you might get a really good price, and sometimes a really good price is very attractive on the front end, but in many cases, and I see it time and time again, almost weekly, for customers that are coming off of these enterprise agreements, they are coming over here, and I'm doing a full review within their tenant, and they have a significant overage of licenses, and upwards of $50,000 a year in licenses that they are not utilizing, and workers that have no longer been in the company. So Microsoft likes to see an overage of licenses because they're going to get paid one way or another. For us, it's really about keeping everybody honest and making sure that you have what you want. I can't tell you how many times a day I get emails from individuals from Microsoft saying, hey, you know what, this client's perfect for an upsell. This client's perfect for an upgrade to an ME5. But having a good partner, we've already had those discussions together. Ourselves, my account management team, everybody here at this organization at Trusted Tech, we want to ensure that we're going out of our way to understand your model and being able to customize that solution that's going to make the most sense for you. So before, enterprise agreements made a ton of sense, but with all these promotions and rebates and incentives that Microsoft provides partners like us, because they want us to push into that market and really take care of their clients that they don't want to hire people and pay for. It makes a lot more sense today especially with all the changes and the different billing terms that are now available to our customers, to work with somebody that has that level of expertise that's going to not only get you good pricing, but we're going to keep your pricing optimized and stay aggressive over time, kind of leading to this graphic that we have up here. So hopefully that helped answer a little bit, but yeah, I think these days having more of a customized solution and somebody that's really digging into your environment with you and providing you that teach a man to fish approach opposed to just doing it for you has been extremely beneficial for our clients.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. And I think, that kind of takes us into the next slide. Yeah, I think, a lot of customers typically in the past would choose an enterprise agreement for price stability. And I think, we did a bit of an assessment to understand, particularly over the past, 3 to 4 years, what adjustments have been made, the difference that we made with organizations that have onboarded with us. And I think the key thing is that we've uncovered, right? Microsoft changes are inevitable. We've seen change year over year, every 6 months, every 3 months at the moment. And I think we're still going to anticipate a bit more change. And obviously, whenever there's change, there's additional incentive and maybe some updates that alleviate a bit of friction, because there's always a bit of noise within the channel, right? And I think, from a trusted tech team point of view, we continue to work to make sure you're getting the best price, but also ensuring that your environment is optimized. I think it's easy to just do a little price war, but I think, finding a partner that is really going to understand the utilization within your tenant, saying, okay, well, maybe a Microsoft E5 isn't the right choice for you. Let's look at a Microsoft E3, or, are you below the 300 user count? And, does the business premium make sense? Are you even utilizing these feature sets? And I think a question maybe, that I did have for Chad is, a lot of the times when we're doing these optimizations, how many times are we identifying customers that have multiple solutions that are already covered either by their Microsoft investment or elsewhere, right?
Yeah, numerous times we go to customers and we see that they have, separately bundled or separately purchased services that could be bundled and bought for a cheaper price than what they're paying. Or on top of it, they're paying for a third-party endpoint protection and they're buying the E5 license, and it comes with Defender for Endpoint P2, which, when properly implemented, is competing with, the top tier XDR services out there. So it happens quite a bit where we're trying to help customers and advocate for customers to see what is out there in the Microsoft stack, kind of, potentially lose the old mentality from 5 years ago where Microsoft services aren't on par with third-party services, and, to take advantage of what you're paying for.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think the key thing is, I'm not saying we can avoid the price increases, because, Microsoft price increases are typically inevitable. We'll see them year on year. We'll see adjustments made. We'll see different licenses increase, but we'll see options in terms of how to create a bit more reprieve. I think the key thing I'm saying is partner with someone who's really going to understand what's happening, who spends and invests and listens to the Microsoft realm and has those weekly meetings, understands the updates from the partner side. And that's really going to be transparent enough to share them with you. The insights that we've learned from licensing optimization to Azure optimization to really fundamentally changing the way that Platinum support or their escalation support works. It's so much better when you have a partner who actually listens and works with you to identify what you need, rather than, I always call it, assumption versus consumption. A lot of partners out there will say, you've got 1,000 users, I'm going to charge you support for 1,000 users, rather than doing an assessment to actually understand, okay, well, you might have 1,000 users, but maybe you only logged 5 tickets with Microsoft last year. So realistically, you don't need 1,000 users worth of support. You've got a really capable internal IT team, or maybe you've only got one and you need a bit more elevated support. I think it really is, again, there's no one size fits all, and it really is spending a bit more time to do a bit of discovery with each and every customer, to listen to what they need and align to their business outcomes. And we'll just do what we do best. We'll do Microsoft. And I think at the end of the day, we want to enable you to continue growing your business without having to worry about the additional kind of feature sets and impacts and etc.
Well said, Justin.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of touched on it, but how do we help our customers through these Microsoft changes? My biggest proponent for my conversations with customers, and Nor knows it very well, Justin knows it very well, is I never want to make the decision for you. I want to give you all the information you need to make the decision that you feel is right for your organization. And up in front of you on the screen is a bunch of instances that Nor and Justin and I have all worked on to help push their business towards a better optimized solution with Microsoft. Not only are they, optimizing their licenses, but they're optimizing the services that they use within Microsoft. They're taking advantage of exactly what they're paying for. They know where they need, third-party solutions outside of the Microsoft ecosystem to cover their gaps. And we try and make sure that, when it comes down to it, the spend or what you're going to pay for what you get is as best as it can be. You always want to, know that you're optimizing. That's what Nora and I, always speak to each other about, is be as efficient as possible. And, if we can give you guys a better service than the next guy, cost the same or less, and you guys are getting, more out of it, then that's a win.
100%. And I mean, you look at these three organizations specifically, all three of these came out of EAs. And so that's coming back to the last point, is like, what's the point of having an EA today? Well, I mean, if you want to be in an enterprise agreement and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars extra within your Microsoft expenses, whether it's a support plan that you're paying $250,000 a year for, or it's overage of licensing, we work with our customers to really understand what their environment needs. And I mean, just looking at John over at Lead Venture, one of our good friends, was able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on their licensing. So that means a $10,000 a month reduction on their bill for their users, and understanding that they're coming into these environments with, whether it's an overage of licenses, or they have full ME5s or ME3 licenses on a subset of employees that really don't need all those feature sets. Some of these guys are out in the field. Some of these guys are out in a warehouse. They're not sending emails back and forth every day. So how do we continue to support our customer security posture without breaking the bank, and understanding that we are going to give you the best bang for your buck? So in many cases, if we're moving customers from a full ME5 or an ME3 to something like an F3, where we can add an additional security policy on top of it, there's so much customization that we could do, and having a good understanding of what we could provide our customers is very important, because a lot of these other big box resellers, they sell hundreds of thousands of different OEM products. So expecting them to be an expert in any way, shape, or form for each of these Microsoft engagements is a tall order. So for us, we really take a lot of pride in understanding our customers, understanding Microsoft, and what we could do to bring those changes to fruition by helping you save a ton of money. Now, I don't know what John did with all those funds and all those hundreds of thousands. We were able to increase the security posture, but with so much extra funding going back, I'm sure their beer fund is through the roof at this point. So it's nice to see that money come back to our customers, where they can go and allocate it elsewhere, and somewhere that could actually, bring them some good use.
I think think about it. How often do IT budgets get money back?
They don't. And even when they do, it's usually not the IT guys that get the fruits of their labor. You know what I mean? So,
and I think I think if we can really just understand, the Microsoft world, and provide a bit of guidance, and really, get through all of, I call it, we do the black magic. We really understand, what's going on. It's a dark art, finessing all of the updates and changes that Microsoft has. There's so many different incentives and funding available. And, I think we like to think we do a really good job at really kind of getting through the mess, figuring out what's important, and then identifying that in each and every one of the organizations that we work with. It not only frees up the budget, but I think, Nor touched on it there, that the drive for security and the drive for regulation and process and policy just continues to go. I think the amount of cybersecurity policies, and the amount of, when we're doing vendor onboardings, we can see the complexity and the security is increasing. There's a lot more boxes to check, but there's typically not enough funds to check those boxes. So I think if we can help identify, cost saving opportunities to free up some budget to get those boxes checked, then I'm pretty happy that we're extending that to organizations and really just helping out those departments that really deserve the help, because we know how we know the firefighters of the business are typically the unsung heroes, but there's not a lot of money to be spent on those departments. So
yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there, Justin, because especially how relevant it is today. Cyber insurance companies are running their audits, they're increasing their premiums. So I have multiple customers in my inbox just this week that we are looking at a potential audit from their cyber insurance company, or their private equity firm is bringing a security team in to take a look at their checklist and making sure that everything is in compliance. And for us to be able to have these conversations with our clients and say, okay, what do we need to make sure that we're checking off these boxes? We need a backup established within your 365, which Microsoft doesn't really have anything natively. We need to ensure that all your Exchange and your emails are all being protected, whether it's through Microsoft or a third-party stack. We want to make sure that your endpoints are all protected properly. So in many cases, if we don't have these things covered on the Microsoft side, we need to be able to dig in and understand the rest of that stack within your environment so that we're checking off these boxes. And when we see redundancy, and I think Chad alluded to it earlier as well, if we see redundancy, that's an opportunity for cost optimization. That's an opportunity for you guys to bring more money into your bucket to spend in these other areas that Microsoft might not be the best fit for it. So for us as a CSP and a value-added reseller for the Microsoft focused engagements, we are very strategic in the partnerships that we bring to the table. So we only want to look at what's going to pair well with your Microsoft 365 environment. What are we doing for your email security? Are you utilizing Mimecast? Are you utilizing Proofpoint? How are we protecting your firewalls? These are all really important engagements to where we can be focused and have that level of expertise, opposed to selling 100,000 different vendors and you going and buying a pet lizard from our website. We want to be very strategic in what we bring to the table, and I think that's where a lot of our customers see the absolute most value. And obviously, we're going to give you the best pricing available. Sorry, Chad, I know you like that one, but
I want to order a pet lizard.
I think SHI has it.
Thank you so much, Justin and Chad, for sharing your changes and sharing ways in which customers can create more value. The points raised emphasize the strategic importance of cost optimization, licensing, and leveraging Microsoft's investments effectively. So right now, we're just going to have time for questions. So I'm just going to go through the questions that are in the forum.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is from Michael, and it was just regarding Teams bundles. The current bundle with Office 365 and his business premiums, will Teams be unbundled from 2025 or this year? If so, do we expect to pay the increased license cost and then the separate Teams costs as well? I'll give that question to Noor.
Yeah, really good question, right? And this is very important that we start taking a look at these when these renewals come about. You're not going to be forced to unbundle. You're going to keep your licenses together. If you're utilizing Teams, you have Teams business premium license. This is exactly where you want to be. You want to keep those SKUs and everything intact within your tenant, so you don't see kind of a double hit with those unbundling price increase on the team side. So keep everything unbundled. You'll see only a 5% uplift if you opt to stick with the monthly billing and the annual commit. But ultimately, we're going to ensure to keep your pricing discounts in line with everything that you've already historically had. So yes, the answer is you can keep everything bundled together and you will not be forced to unbundle in any way, shape, or form. I hope that answers. But yeah, I know we have a ton of questions and we'll be good.
What about for customers who are transferring from other suppliers or directly with Microsoft who have their licenses bundled with Team?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question, because now there's different nuances that come to the table. So if you want to continue to keep your licenses, ensure that you're doing a CSP transfer out to us so that we can take over the existing billing. Now, in many cases, if a license or a SKU is on a promotional SKU, we would need to look at potentially anchoring a SKU in there so that you guys can have that flexibility to move into a new line item that potentially has that bundled SKU together. That's going to be very nuanced and very specific to your tenant and the renewal dates that are coming up. So I encourage you, if you're looking at something like that, get with your account manager today. Call them up, get some time on the calendar, and understand a lot of these changes that potentially will not be able to, we won't be able to do much if those things are renewing after April 1st. So keep that in mind and get the engagement with your account manager to do a full review of your tenant. It's very specific, it's very nuanced, but we have the tools in place to help you navigate through it.
And then the next question is from Daniel. He just wanted to clarify, if we choose to pay upfront at renewal, we avoid the 5% increase this year. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
That's how it works, yeah.
That's not just this year, that is moving forward. So if you guys can CapEx that expenditure, it is well worth talking to your finance team. It's really important to understand what your totality is of your Microsoft spend. We have customers that are spending $1 million a year and some customers that are spending, $20,000 a year. And it's a lot more digestible to go to your finance team and say, hey, you know what, our $20,000 Microsoft expense is going to go up 5%. If we could pay it up front, excellent opportunity for you guys to avoid the price increase completely. That is one of those cases where we can avoid it, and you guys won't have to see that moving forward. But most companies are more than happy to OpEx that 5% because they're going to be able to do a lot more within their organization throughout the year than just dumping it all up front on a Microsoft expense. I know, I hope that makes sense, but as we continue to have these renewal conversations and additional engagements with you and really come up with that more of a customized approach, we'll be able to discuss that on a tenant-to-tenant basis.
And our next question is from Hamza. We already have a reseller for our annual commitment on monthly basis. Will we be able to transfer our tenant with Trusted Tech Team?
Great question for you, Justin. I think pretty straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think, maintaining that, if you have a team subscription bundled already with an existing supplier, Microsoft released the CSP to CSP transfer tool last year, kind of similar to how we currently transfer Azure. So Azure is probably one of the easiest ways to, transfer your Azure over, Trusted Tech Team if you are assessing. And they made a similar tool available for the Microsoft 365 licenses to maintain those enterprise SKUs, including Teams. And that obviously just depends on, I guess, where you're at in your term. But if it is coming up to your renewal, then absolutely, if you're in conversations already, we can do the CSP to CSP transfer and maintain that bundled SKU.
And we have a question from Trevor. Annual monthly option, as I understand, my license count cannot be lowered each month and be increased. Then we are given a 2-week window before the annual renewal commitment to lower licenses. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so the way that works is right around spring of 2022, Microsoft introduced NCE. NCE has 2 options. There's an annual commit and a monthly commit. Both of those commitments give you a 7-day window, which is considered your renewal window. So when you do an annual commitment, you have 358 days out of the year where your licenses are locked to the minimum commitment, and you can go up, but you cannot go down. That's just the way Microsoft has built it out. The monthly subscription, you're going to have, roughly 24 days a month where those licenses are locked for the monthly commit. And then again, you're going to have a 7-day window where you can go up or you can go down, and then a new month-to-month window starts up. So the distinction, is that there's an annual commit and a monthly commit. The monthly commit has slightly more flexibility because every month you're going to get to change that. Whereas the annual commit is basically you have your minimum commitment for that full year. So you can't go down, but you can go up because in that commitment time, you basically have a 7-day window, and then 358 days it's locked. Keep in mind when you go up, whatever you add is going to be prorated and co-termed in that 1 year period.
Yeah, and something very important to note when we're looking at co-terming and making sure that anything you add midterm is obviously going to be co-termed for that line item. We've done a phenomenal job of getting most of our tenants co-termed throughout the year. So when NCE was forced into action January 11th of 2024, obviously NCE was announced 2 years ago with those pricing increases, and we were able to push that out extremely far with some of the grandfathered line items that we have within the tenants. But January 11th of last year is when everybody was really forced into that new commerce experience where everybody started to see these annual commits with their licensing. Now, every line item within your tenant is not always going to be 100% co-termed. You might have ME3s expiring next month, and then your Power BI Pros expiring in June. So keep an eye out on those renewal dates, as it's very important when we are doing these different changes. Get with your account manager, have a good understanding of where your line items lie as we continue to work through getting everything co-termed so we can always get together, have one powwow together, and understand what that renewal looks like so you can have a good, accurate budget projection for years to come.
Thank you, Noah, and thank you, Chad. And I've got one more question from Daniel. Can you elaborate on what you mean by CapEx on license costs? I always thought software expenses were considered OpEx.
So CapExing is when you pay it all up front. You can OpEx and utilize. So let's say we do a, just for everybody's clarity here, let's say you're buying a 1 year Mimecast email security for your organization. You're going to get a quote for $20,000, and you're expected to most likely pay that up front. Now, there's going to be different opportunities depending on which vendor you utilize. And here at Trusted Tech Team, we're very flexible when it comes to billing. So we want to be able to give you as many options as possible. So when you're CapExing that spend, you're paying it all up front. You're going to say, hey, Nor, here's a $20,000 check for the Mimecast for the year. You paid it. You're done. You don't have to worry about it. Microsoft historically has always been on a monthly payment model where you can increase and decrease all you want. You have a, $500,000 expenditure throughout the year with Microsoft. A lot of companies will choose not to CapEx that because that's $500,000 of capital that you're going to have to spend on an expenditure like Microsoft. When realistically, that $500,000, if you paid it month by month throughout the year, your organization is probably going to be able to use that money to make more, opposed to just dumping it all up front on an expenditure like your technology stack. I hope that makes sense. And if you have any additional questions on that, Daniel, I'm more than happy to get with you outside of the call.
And I think even on that one, right, I think each business is different. A lot of finance or CFOs that I know, they typically won't do that internally. They won't allow an internal CapEx for subscription, software subscription models, but certain organizations and certain financial models do allow it. So I think this is definitely going to be a business by business, depending on, cash at hand and the way that they process CapEx is internally.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you can mix and match your billing terms and the billing duration within your tenant. So just because you have a yearly commit on a good portion of your core suite licenses does not mean you can't add a month-to-month SKU within your tenant. So if you have contractors coming in, or if you have interns coming in for the summer that are only going to be with your organization for 2-3 months, there is no reason to buy yearly licensing for those individuals if they're only going to be there for 3 months, right? So yeah, you're going to get a great discount on those yearly licenses. But if you're stuck holding a bag of licenses throughout the year for a temporary employee, in many cases it makes a lot more sense to just do more of a customized approach. Put a layer of monthly licenses on top. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but it does provide you a lot more flexibility throughout the year. So you can mix and match and customize everything as much as you want.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point.
I have one more question, last one. Customers aren't. And this one's not about my software, but mainly about on-prem licensing. So just a question, do we sell on-prem licenses like Windows Server, SQL Server, and CALs?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think, I mean, that essentially the core business model that Trusted Tech team started on. And obviously, as Microsoft evolved into the cloud and kind of grew a bit more dependent on the cloud, we naturally shifted with our customers. But absolutely, if you do need some proposals or quotes on your Windows Server licensing, your SQL licensing, anything perpetual subscription, get in touch with your account manager. If you aren't yet engaged with through Trusted Tech team, obviously utilize the links on the screen at the moment, and we can absolutely get in touch and provide you with some options on that renewal or net new licenses that you need to procure.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you we're going to have the best pricing globally, I think, on our perpetual and on-prem. So SQL servers, anything that you need, let us know. We have an entire dedicated team for that whole licensing model that's going to be able to help you guys every step of the way.
Thank you so much, Justin, Noor, and Chad. Thank you for sharing. And just thank you to all our attendees. As Justin said, feel free to contact your AMs for our existing customers, and our new customers, feel free to use the link as well. If you have any questions regarding today's session, or you just want to know more about us and the services we provide, just use the link. And also just to encourage you to register for our next webinar, which is in March next month. Thank you. And it's just going to be about using your existing tools to upgrade your cloud security. I can see from the responses that everyone's quite happy with the session. So glad to get that feedback from you. And just to remind you all that this session has been recorded, so you have access to it. It will be sent to you via email. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to talking to you. Each one of you guys.
Thanks for joining us today.
Don't hesitate to reach out. We're here with you guys.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.